Hello, welcome to this new episode of our Far From Home talk, a talk with a friend abroad. We are in Malta today with our guest and friend Adriana. She is German-Brazilian living in Malta, and I think this is already very interesting, and I will ask you something like later. But first, welcome to our series. And the first question is actually how you ended up in Malta. If you want to share a little bit of your stories and your international experiences before coming here.
Thank you for your invitation, Viviana. It's really a pleasure to be talking to you one more time. And so how I ended up in Malta. It was in 2014. I was living in Belgium, and I realized after more or less 1 year that I really wanted to change my life, to change especially the weather. I couldn't handle the winter in Belgium anymore. And by the time I was working for the Embassy of Brazil in Brussels, I was the personal assistant of the ambassador, and I reached a point that I wasn't sure about what I wanted to do professionally. I wasn't personally happy with the weather, with the personal life, despite the fact that, of course, I had friends. I was very familiar with the country, with the culture and everything, because I have been there for 8 years. Mm-hmm. So I really wanted a simple life with sun. Mm-hmm. And then I Google it. As an accountant, how to find a job in Malta as an accountant, because that's what I studied. And then I found, a job. I applied, and after a few months of interviews and administrative process, I arrived in Malta to work as an accountant in the audit department at PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers. That's how everything started in 2014.
Good. I think, so I have a question that was not actually on the list, but because I also had an experience in a like diplomatic environment, because one of my first internship, my second internship was at the permanent mission of Italy to the United Nations.
Yes.
When I got there, I was like fascinating with everything, but then I thought like the diplomatic life is not for me. And so then, like before, you mentioned that you were like the assistant of the ambassador, but then you want also a more like simple life. So, and how was then the change from like because it's really like a particular like environment, the diplomatic one, and in Brussels, and then ended up in Malta? There was something that you were missing then, or no?
Well, first thing, the diplomatic environment is really unique. It's very hard for a person who was not in the inner circle to understand what it represents. So it's elite, right? So it's a very elitist circle of individuals. Or they are really born with, I don't know, titles like royalty, or they are extremely competent professionals that went through a brilliant career. And you find brilliant individuals, amazing people with a very interesting work and stories to tell. But at the same time, as it's a bubble, you start understanding that, of course, that's not the world, that's not how things are. And you start understanding your privilege in a very, very deeply level, at the level as a government, because I was working for the government of Brazil. And Brazil is far from being a country that scores high in equality, right? So I couldn't do it anymore, because I also understood that everything, the access, so precisely the routine life, you have access to places and to people and to information and to facilities, and you, of course, you have a huge amount of money, not only as your wage, but everything that you have access that you are not paying. It's a life of a privilege. And but then in a personal level, it becomes, it's not Adriana Frank, it's the position I have. So the next one will absolutely have the same thing. You don't really create personal relationship. I trust. That's what I think is really rare. Is really rare. For example, the ambassador used to receive hundreds of cards and greetings for Christmas, imagine. And it was a burden of a work to do because you have to see it. And then how it is this done? He will be told about who sent something, and he would, of course, not answer all of them. Someone else will do it. And at the same time, he knows very well that these cards, they arrive I mean, it will always arrive for the ambassador present at that moment. It's not himself personally. So it's a bit of a theater, everything. It's a beautiful scenario with people that sometimes don't want to be there. Many that have very broken personal lives because family doesn't want to change to a country, from one country to another every 3 years. So
I agree. Yeah, there was also something that, like, for me was not actually what I was fit for, and I think also because of something that you mentioned, I wanted also to add my personal value and my professional value, but was difficult there. And at the same time, I also saw, and especially for women in the diplomatic sector, from specific country like Italy and maybe also Brazil, was extremely difficult, and there was a lot of frustration to try to have it all. So the family, the career, and be recognized as in that sector. That also for me was like difficult to face, and then this is why then I it changed a little bit my
yes. For us as women is, you have an additional set of difficulties for sure. And in Brazilian diplomacy specifically, the only one that I witnessed, I was a witness for some time, is women, they have their colleagues, because it's a career about time, right? You need promotion, and you always keep in contact with the ones that you are working with. You might work with someone today and you might find the same person 5 years later in another country. So it's all about a network of favors and tolerance and favors and exchange of favors, always waiting for something to come that might be useful for you. And coming back to women, they face, they are not very the favorites to go on. Usually they have to fight much more to be heard, to be promoted. Yes. And those women that I met that were ambassadors, right? Not the wives of ambassadors, but ambassadors themselves. They were extraordinary women, but you can also see it that they suffered a lot to get there. They suffered for, it's a career of 30, 40, 50 years. They start when they are in their 20s, you know. And so, for women, it's quite complex. I didn't want this battle, honestly. I think I can make a difference having more fun.
Yes, exactly. And so I want to get here because I was thinking of like speaking about this later, but I think this is like the right time, because you didn't mention that what you are doing now in Malta. And I think for what you just said, is like what you're doing now is really like bringing value, doing something that actually is also your name. And I love it that like the name Frank Prop. So like let's just like, explain us what you're doing now in Malta. I think
yes. So my name Frank. So wherever I go, I am German for sure. And so I created a product and a company, a brand, right, that calls Frank Wrap. So the idea is to help households to reduce plastic consumption through plastic cling film. That plastic that we use to cover food, to cover a dish, to wrap a sandwich. So the product that I make, because it's handmade, is natural. So it's fabric, it's beeswax, it's pine resin, it's jojoba oil. So it can be compostable. There are no chemicals, and it lasts up to a year with the proper care. And that's how I decided to add value to the locals, because it's made in Malta, and my suppliers are also Maltese. Not all of them, but I give privilege to Maltese companies and suppliers. And we have such a huge problem of pollution here, and I am here for the weather, right? That was my first thing, and it still is the weather, the sea. I love it. So I am very frustrated when I see that the beach is dirty. Mm-hmm. So it really frustrates me, and that's how I decided to do my part of it. That's it. If I answer your question.
That's great. And then maybe in the comment we will put all like the links to the company and the social media.
That's the packaging. I don't have the product itself here, but that's all the explanation how to take care of it.
Super. And so then, like, COVID came, and how was for you? What were the challenges, if you had any, like being far from home, being far from various homes or places that you can call home? Or
yes,
friends?
Yes. The concept of being far away from home is not new for me. Since I left Brazil in 2006, and I have my parents there, I have friends there, but I also have friends in many other countries. So in this physical sense, it wasn't very, very difficult, because Brazil is not a place where you can go for the weekend and come back. So I have to wait years to go there, to really organize everything, to be there. And Frank Rep had an increase in sales. So I was extremely busy, working a lot, more than I was working before. Or it was a coincidence of the hard work that I was doing already, but I had an increase in sales. People wanted to protect their food, and it was really good. Yeah. So I was working home, and it was okay. It wasn't too complicated. Mm-hmm. It was okay.
Yeah, I think what you mentioned is interesting, because like I'm European, and like in Europe it's easier to travel. So this idea of going for the weekend, well, there are people that are in a more, like, let's say, long distance and a migration that is across continent, where already the plan is going back every year if you can, or every 2 years, because like the travel are expensive, or because you cannot stay just a few days, you want
exactly
to stay for like a few months. So there is a plan that you have to make before going. Mm-hmm. and be prepared. So I think also this was a shock, maybe more for the one of us that were like far from home but still close, and had this like easier way of like traveling and going from one place to the other, that actually like maybe affected us. Not everyone was affected, but for us was also a change in the mindset that was not before.
Yes. We realized that suddenly we are not as free as we used to be.
Yeah.
And is this, we are not used to face adversity, our generation. Yes. We haven't seen exactly what it is. I don't know, a place of war, a period of war, we cannot travel, and lack of resources. We didn't know it.
Yeah.
It is scary as well.
It is. Yeah, because then as you mentioned, like before we started the talk, it is global, it is local. So we were lucky here. We know that there are countries that are like less lucky, but because also there are like previous issues, not only like COVID make more visible some of the problems that were already there, like the case of Brazil or even other countries.
I spent lots of time at the beginning reading different news. So I usually read about Malta, about EU in general, then sometimes a bit of France, Belgium, and Brazil. So I go through newspapers that have different languages and point of views as well. And at the beginning, I was really trying to understand if there is unanimity and what exactly we should do. What exactly, I was trying to form an opinion at the beginning. And I have doctors in my family, very close to me. And then, yes, so I could really understand that, yes, we should avoid, it makes sense. We really should avoid contact and going out, and it's really dangerous. We should protect ourselves. So I was very fortunate to have someone that I could really trust at the beginning, because it could be anything.
Yes.
It could be crazy.
Exactly. And I think like trust was also something that we were desperately searching for, who we can trust, where
Yeah.
the truth, and still is.
Can we trust the government of Malta?
Yeah.
Can we?
Yeah.
Are they saying the truth? Who is saying the truth?
Yeah, the health authority, the ministry, yeah, we should follow.
Yes.
Yeah. And there were like any resource that you discover or rediscover, or something that you found you're appreciating more now, or your life was important for you also during this month?
I organized myself to keep in contact with friends that I wasn't in contact so often. So I really send a message saying, voice messages saying, how are you? How's it going for you? Is everything okay? Is that as bad as I'm seeing on the news? Are you safe? And so I kept contact with friends that I wasn't that close on a daily life anymore. And here at home, we were all the time asking of our parents, because my husband is from Serbia, and the situation there, it was also a different reality adding to this list.
Yes.
And so we were, I think, even more collaborative, my husband and I. We were really committed to keep things organized, to keep things clean, a routine, to exercise at home, because we couldn't go jogging anymore. We couldn't go to the gym anymore. And so we were exercising, helping each other in this sense.
Yeah. And like before the last part is actually the message to your countries in your languages. I want to ask, because you when I ask you how I can like describe you, like Brazilian, German, and you say German Brazilian. So the first question is, what you can say it's still German in you, or what's Brazilian, or how these like two sides of you now they are combined? And how was with this like intercultural couple that you are now? That there was like something that was a challenge?
Language is always the challenge, I think, because language is the most important tool we have. If we are not able to communicate clearly, and if the other person doesn't have the capacity to understand what you are saying, you have a problem. But I don't speak German.
You use English. English is your language.
I speak English, yes. My husband speaks very good English. He speaks English since he was a child. So he has a very good level of English, better than mine. And we speak in English, but it's still a challenge. Yeah. It's still a challenge, yes, always is. And I don't speak German. I speak, of course, Brazilian Portuguese, and I speak French. Mm-hmm. I haven't been speaking French since I arrived in Malta almost. Mm-hmm. I am not speaking French so often. And so, and about being German, it's blood. I have citizenship through blood, but I have never been there as a citizen. Yeah. So I have been a citizen in Belgium and in Malta, but not in Germany. And I don't know, I guess the Germans wouldn't accept me as a real German.
Okay.
Because I don't have the childhood there, I don't have the language, I don't have a deep knowledge of the culture.
Because your parents, they were speaking with you in Portuguese, in Brazilian.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And my grandfather left Germany in 35. So he was from the north of Germany in a city called Lübeck, and he took a boat to Brazil. He didn't know where the boat was going.
Yeah.
Yes, because his city was very resistant to accept the Nazis. So they were already trying slowly to interfere in things, to enter in the city in different levels. And it was a city that resisted bravely. But this is history.
I think it's interesting because then when people think about Brazil, it's only, let's say, Rio or more the Northeast. But then if you go to the South, there are a lot of people from like German and Italy that they migrate in the 30s, in the 50s.
Yes. And this is something absolutely fantastic about Brazil. I think if there is something that we can highlight as amazing thing in Brazil is the mixture. Yes. Like my friends' childhood, they were all from immigrant families. So my friends were Italians. I used to go at their house when I was a child, and their grandparents were there speaking in Italian. And it's the same thing in Spanish, and lots of Japanese in São Paulo, lots of Japanese. And I am fascinated by it. I love it. Yes. And everybody always lived well.
Yes.
Many religions, all the religions as well, everything living peacefully together. It's changing now. Huh? I'm not very much into the news. I'm not very updated, but there is some intolerance that became very evident now about religion in Brazil. There is something to be seen really deeply. What are the causes of it? How it can be understood? Because if no one stops to try to understand why this animosity is coming, what's going to happen?
Yeah, I think Brazil is really it's so fascinating. Like I love it, and for me, it's extremely fascinating. Exactly, also for what you mentioned, because of the diversity, the cultural diversity, the natural diversity, the religious diversity. But then there are also a lot of challenges that sometimes all these like issues are used by one politician, the other, at the regional level, at the federal level, at the national level. So it's really a complex country and a complex.
It's extremely complex, yes, and it's a new country.
Yeah,
it has 500 years.
Yeah.
And when we compare, at least if we can say that with time we learn, let's say that like a continent, the European continent, had more time to learn with its mistakes. I would say so. So maybe in 100 years it will be a bit better.
Yeah. If Europe have learned, but Europe is still learning also, let's say like this. Okay, so now you can send the message in the language that you
Portuguese.
Super.
Ok. Eu queria que o Brasil realmente se comprometesse a olhar, tratar e cuidar das minorias do país. Educação, saúde, infraestrutura. O Brasil precisa cuidar com carinho do seu povo, porque o Brasil é um país que tem muitos recursos, mas o principal recurso é a população. É essa população que faz a diferença, porque mesmo quando você encontra um país que não tem recursos e as pessoas são ricas e estão comprometidas, você consegue atingir um nível de desenvolvimento e de igualdade que é admirável. Então, tudo depende da educação e do comprometimento do povo. É isso que É isso que eu diria, se o Brasil pudesse me ouvir.
Obrigada.
Obrigada.
Yeah, and I think this is also, we didn't mention, or we briefly mentioned that the idea was also that like COVID made evident some challenges as Brazil was going, and one is the gap between like the rich and the poor. So, and equality is really something that I also like, I shared the same message for you. Is equality is so important, and education can really, and
Yes.
compromise to like to support the people, and through education like try to reach this equality. It would be amazing.
I think it's through education that an individual can really understand the gap between different individuals, because Brazil, you have hundreds of years of slavery, and it's very important to understand that you are born with something less. You will not reach the same standards because you don't have access, and this is brutal.
Yeah,
this is brutal.
Yeah, that's right. So let's hope for the best. And thank you very much for sharing. Thank you for being with us. And then on the comment, like we will write the link to Frank Rapp, so if people want to follow you or get.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I hope to see you soon again.
Yes, me too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye bye, and see you
Bye.
next Wednesday. Bye.
Yes. Bye.